It's time to get started, I guess. Not doing DoorDash today, at least I don't have it scheduled. Mostly because I just feel like on Friday, I feel too pressured on a Friday. It's like I don't get to work anymore on this for what amounts to probably 36 hours comes out to, it's 24 technically that I take the whole time off, but I don't typically work too much on Saturday night. So 5 o'clock is the cutoff with all the things that I want to get done and just too many things going on. I do got to take a break at some point, so I'll take a break for a little while. But ultimately, I just feel too much pressure to like I'm losing time, and so I typically have been avoiding dashing on Fridays. I'm 99% sure I don't have a dash scheduled today, but I'm gonna look just to see if I. Okay, good. I don't. And it's really, well, actually, I could technically schedule. It looks like starting at 12:30, but I don't want to, so I'm not going to do that. So, and besides, I noticed yesterday when I went out and dashed, I did pretty good right up until about 1 o'clock, and everything just died. I sat there for more than a half an hour doing nothing, and just decided, screw it, I'm leaving. So you see this guy on my screen? I just found him. I mean, I was trying to check my stuff, and I saw this guy. He's a coder with 677,000 subscribers. It's pretty impressive. And obviously he's pretty good, and he types like freaky fast. And he did a leak code thing in here. And I was just looking at leak code and going, I've done this before. I've had a job interview where they had me do leak code. And I think I did one where I did fine, I guess. I think I passed it. But fine being, I've never even in all my, I've just never been comfortable with doing a test with people watching me doing a test. They're just sitting there saying, okay, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. And the thing is, I mean, I guess they have whiteboards and stuff. I just hate it. I just hate it because I feel like you're not allowed to use resources, and I want to use resources. And so therefore, it's just coming off the top of your head. And yes, I kind of know what I want. But to me, I think of things. I'm a coder of a managerial. I take a managerial approach to coding. And what I mean by that, there's coders that are head down. Give me the task. I'll just they'll code it out. But I take a managerial approach to coding. And what that means is I'm not necessarily going to know the code as well as some people. But my approach is, I don't know. I would like to say my approach is different, but, it could very well be that it's not much different from others. Maybe I'm just making excuses. I don't know. But here's the deal. I see people who can just be saying they'll be given a leak code task like this, or even any other task. Maybe you're just sitting there in the office and they're saying, well, if we did this and we wanted you to do this minute little task, how would you do it? And then my brain blanks out and I immediately start talking about the overall, what my approach would be in the general sense of things. I would probably use, almost all the tasks in some way I would use a for loop. It's almost always what you're doing, because they want you to go through some array. They want you to go through some numeric sequence, which they want you to derive blah, 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 which requires some kind of a loop. And it's not always a for loop, but it could be some kind of a while loop, which is just another kind of for loop. It could be an if-then sequence or a switch statement where you're making conditional checks. But ultimately, that's kind of the basis. And that's kind of where your brain kind of goes, well, okay, well, if I need to repeat, if I need to come up with this concept. And so they might be having you break down a string but the thing is, given your particular language, it's syntactically is going to be different. Now, if you've worked in a few different languages, which I've kind of got a decent, not as much as some people. I see people go on here, I've used 10 different languages. Here's my rating of them all. And it's like, whoa, 10. And, I've done a few languages, all fairly similar over the years. I did, when I started out, I was doing Access Basic. I did some AutoCAD Basic, and Lisp, which is AutoCAD's I think it was called Auto Lisp, actually, but it was like their language of their own thing. I did that for a little bit of time. I advanced on to doing like Visual Basic, because going from Access Basic to VBA, Access Basic was a little different from VBA, but they eventually went to VBA, which is Visual Basic for Applications, which is what they put in all of their Office apps and their programming language. Which is kind of like it's JavaScript for Visual Basic. It's like there's Visual Basic and there's VBA. There's JavaScript and Java. And really, from what I hear, JavaScript and Java are actually quite different. I didn't realize that. I mean, like way different from what I'm told. I've never done Java, so maybe that's a failing of mine. So I did VB. Then I got a job as an Access certified programmer at a company that did C# as their primary programming language. So I got into C#, which was pretty easy transition. And it was syntactically a little different, but I moved on to C#. And did some extensions, did some code in there. I worked on C# for the next 10 years. And I got pretty decent at it. A lot of my C# experience kind of became in doing some back-end stuff for a website, using C# as the back-end to ASP.NET. My other language would be SQL Server. I did a lot of coding in SQL Server. I mean, I actually wrote an entire application just out of SQL Server code. I mean, it was obviously it was a code only. I mean, there's no really UI other than the ASP.NET C# website that was a wrapper around it that was the UI. And so, of course, I learned HTML and some JavaScript in order to do the front-end portions of that website. But again, my entire approach, in fact, I don't know when this started. I'd probably say 8, 9, 10 years after I started coding, I started to look at my coding not about the individual tasks, but about the individual destinations. So honestly, I probably stopped focusing on learning code as much as learning how to get things done. And I say this in a way and like I said, it may just be me making excuses, but ultimately I have found that I don't look at coding the same way. If I need to accomplish something, I have no fear about looking it up. Some people are like, no, I'm just going to sit there and hack away and try this and try that. And I've done that. Trust me. I've done it now. I've done it recent. I've done it in the past. But then I always stop and go, why? There's probably a solution out there already. And sometimes I had to. Like when I programmed my SQL Server application, there was no solution already. I tried to find all the little bits and the parts I wanted, and nobody was doing what. I mean, I couldn't find it anywhere. It didn't exist. I don't even know if I'd be surprised if I can go find some of the stuff I had to do in AI, because it was just like the only thing we knew that the script existed, but there was no actual coding of that script that I had seen anywhere. I did all the Googling. I went to all of the boards. I need to figure out how to do this item. Anybody. It's like, nope, there wasn't even a hint, not a clue. So then you get in there and you start hacking away at it. I knew what the script was. I knew how to get to the object model bits, and I just kind of had to figure out what they did, and then start manipulating those. And did they do what I wanted? And then I had to start, creating little tests to kind of see what is it doing to make sure it's doing what I expect, because nobody had done this. I know how to get in there and hack away at code. But if somebody were to come up to me and go, now, 10 years after I did a lot of that, you solve a problem, and for me, I move on. I don't. My brain is one that says, okay, we did it. Let's go do this. Give me a year and I won't remember how I did that. I'll just remember that I did it. And yeah, I know I can go back and do it again and probably be more familiar to me. My brain's probably got it back there somewhere, but I won't recall it until I need to do it again. And I don't mean like in an interview test. You give me an interview test, my brain shuts all the doors and puts the keys in a safe box. And it says, yeah, you're on your own here. We're going to hold on to this. We don't want you to risk losing it. So my brain goes off, and then I'm like, words, for next, for loop, and if then loop. And if then's not a loop. It's like, whoops. For next, and if then conditionals. So it's kind of like when you have a word in mind and it just goes out the window, and you're like, I need that word, because without that word, my sentence makes no sense. I need to end my sentence. It's like, I can't get it. I need that word. And that's what I am when I get put into a coding interview. And this is why I won't say this is why I haven't gotten a job in 9 months, because nobody's calling me. So you can't fail a test you haven't been allowed to take, or even been offered to take, much less, or rather, I didn't even know existed, a test, because I wasn't given a chance. So that's another problem. Ultimately, it's like, I have proven to me and the people I worked with that I know how to solve coding problems. I get it. I've been working on this app for 2 months. Do I say, am I an expert in Go? No. Am I an expert in React? No. Am I an expert in Mongo? No. And I say that, I emphasize that one, but I'm just as far away as on Go. Probably a little better. I'm intermediate probably at React at this point. But even then, I haven't done a lot of complex stuff in React yet. I haven't done a lot of the really difficult manipulations. But I'm starting to get familiar with how the code looks. But I'll tell you right now, I go to a coding interview with all the stuff I've learned about React, and they ask me something that I've been doing, I'd probably go, words, React. It uses TypeScript. To a point. It's JavaScript. It's not fully TypeScript, but but still, Angular is more TypeScript than React is. But anyway, so when I look at things, I look at the goal of the problem, and then I try to solve for the goal. And then I know enough about coding that I can look at the code and go, okay, that's not going to work. If I'm using AI, I might whatever code source I'm pulling in. A lot of times I'll look at it and I can read it enough to understand what it's trying to accomplish, and understand that, okay, this piece is not going to function for what I need. But I'm not actively trying. In fact, I get it. Short of doing it many, many, many times, I don't actively attempt to what I want to call incorporate syntax into my memory function. I actively try to learn how to come to the answer, either by research, by a little bit of fiddling around and understanding how code works to know how to get things the way I want them. And that's how I'm learning these languages. Okay, so no, I'm not a Go expert, but I've developed microservices and gRPC gateway for the microservices. I've connected it to a Mongo database. I've called it from a React application, and I'm going to continue to do that as I continue this application. But I didn't know how to do all this, and to be honest, if somebody stuck me in a room right now and said, go do that again, I probably couldn't do it. Not without my resources, because my brain uses resources. So I'm not I've done quite a bit, I'd say, in the 34 days of work on this, which is probably closer to 37, 38 days, because I've worked on this a few times without streaming. And you'll notice that I don't have 34 streams on my thing. I might be close, because I also do multi-days. So if I stream 3 times in a day, it'll be 34.1.2.3. So, or 34.2. Well, actually, probably 34.2.3, because that's 3 in a day. So that's how you'll look at my streams, and you'll know that how many times I've worked on it. But day-wise, probably about 37 days. I'd probably say 38. I don't know, a few extra days I worked without streaming at all, and those days aren't on my list. And I just enumerate the number on here. And this way you can kind of see at the end, or as things progress, how many days I have actually been on this. And I'd probably say it's 10% more offline. So after 100 days, I may have worked 10 days offline. That's assuming it's how I continue. Now, keep in mind, too, that all the progress I have is fully, or I'm going to have, is fully dependent on what my current job situation is. Right now, I'm unemployed, so I've got more time. I can do more things. But again, I've done what I've done in what looks like a little over a month. A month and a week, 5 weeks of actual work. Now, again, what it doesn't take into account are my non-coding times. Planning, coordinating, researching how to do these things. Because again, I'm not just learning online. I'm learning a lot of stuff offline. I'm watching videos, not just how to do Go though, or not how to do certain things necessarily. I'm doing less and less of that now. But mostly it's about planning the application, planning out what I want, how I want it to look, how I want it to perceive. Because again, no amount of knowing how to code is going to tell you the way to lay this out. It's not going to tell you what you want in the application. It's not going to tell you, I could be the greatest Go programmer in the world, but if I don't have something to do, it ain't going to matter. And if I don't have a way to lay it out so it's functional and looks good and works for the purpose, it's not going to help any either. So I've always been, in fact, I'd probably go back to, again, 5 years, 3 years, whatever. I've always looked at my coding from the user's perspective. It's just always been me. The developer, I've seen too many games, even nowadays, you can see are created from the developer's perspective. Free to play is the most blaring, obvious visual of when a developer is doing it from a developer's perspective. Developer says, I want to make money. How can I make this game so it makes me money? And you can tell the ones that it's just obvious. The ones where they have significant caps, the game breaks almost immediately after you start. There's pricing things on everything you do right out the gate. You could just see, do these 2 options or any one of these 10 options that cost money. Or, in fact, I was just looking at a game on here I was trying out on my, because again, I'm doing a lot of research for competitive games, trying to see what they're doing and what their flaws are versus what they do well. And yeah, I'm kind of borrowing some stuff. I have to. If I see something that looks pretty good, I kind of go, well, I like kind of how this does this, or how this does this, or how that does that. And of course, mine is going to look different because it's always going to be a little different. But that's kind of how I approach my code. So this is probably why I do so bad on technical interviews, because I don't see this object, this little 2-line object. I would probably go, well, what application are we developing here? Is that the thing we want to do? I'd probably be going, why on earth would we be doing a binary tree? I use that as an example to me. It's like, I've been coding for too long, way longer than most people want to do anything. And to be honest, I was totally, when I got laid off from my job back in April, honestly, I was sick of coding. Sick of it. I was like, I want to do something different. I want a new career. I just started looking at all the jobs that totally were unrelated, things I wanted to do. And then I realized there was no money in it. I had no experience in it, and nobody was going to hire me doing that. So I went back to looking for work in my normal field. Just saying, okay, well, something new. Maybe I'll be able to figure something out. And I thought it was coding that I was sick of, and it's really not coding that I'm sick of. I am enjoying doing what I'm doing right now, and it's not because I'm using new languages which I'm learning. It's what I'm doing, and it's again, it comes back around to what has always made me the developer that I am. I've always come at it from the user's perspective. And as a user, I think the things that I've been doing, and it's just has no appeal to me. And it's like, how do I look at this and understand what the user wants and needs, and how does this improve their life? And I'm not a graphics guy, so unfortunately, I mean, I can understand what's a cool graphics. I can look at two games and go, I like this one better. This one's got stuff that draws me in. And what is it about that? I can see that. And I even have that in mind in my game that I'm trying to develop, but I still have yet to figure out how I'm going to solve some of those issues, because I understand what I want and what I would like to see happen. But not being an artist, or what I want to call graphically inclined, artistically inclined. I won't even say graphically inclined. I have an idea of graphics, of what I want. I have that there, but I'm not artistic. I don't know how to create art. And not art in the visual sense. Like, I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to... I used to be actually a very decent sketch artist of dimensional... I want to say dimensional, architectural art. Basically, I could draw things that were measurable. Math. My brain is math. Angles, coming at things with a decent perspective of what do I see exactly. So basically, I could draw portraits of people that were sitting in front of me and do it pretty decently, not necessarily fast, because I would mimic the exact details of what I'm seeing. I had an uncle of mine who was willing to sit down and let me sketch him, and it came out pretty good. It was actually really good. Everybody was like, "Wow, that's really good," and everybody I showed it to, and it's like, and I did this as a teenager, so I wasn't a little kid, so people weren't just going, "Ooh, good job drawing that stick figure of your uncle." No, I mean, it had shadowing, and I kept it, but I don't know what happened to it. It disappeared. So at some point in the past, it vanished. But again, that's me basically just mimicking what I see. I draw what I see. You ask me to take that same face in my head and put it on paper, my brain's like, going to leave out all the details. I'm not going to remember the shadows. I'll be trying to force them out. And it might come out to something that looks kind of like what I drew, but it wouldn't. And again, it's something that exists. Ask my brain to create something out of nothing. My brain will give you a concept, but it'll have no detail. And when it comes down to putting it on paper, forget it. No. I could explain to somebody and go, okay, this is what I'm thinking. And if somebody's an artist, I've worked with people who are artists and can kind of explain what I want. And a good artist can come pretty dang close. I said, that's it. That's what I'm looking for. I'm like, yeah, good job. It may not be exactly, but I mean, I'm a managerial folk. I think my brain is swapped over from worker bee to managerial bee. And I could still do the coding. I still do the work. In fact, I want to, because that keeps me grounded to reality. If you're a manager only, as a manager, especially of those who are doing I want to say the dirty work, right? They're getting in there and they're doing the code. What they're doing has time limits, or has time. It's time limits. It's what can realistically be done in time. And if you only manage, you start to lose grasp of what can be done in time. You either start to think, I could have done it. You start to have a false bravado of your own talent and skills, or you start to see one or two guys out there in the world, like the primetime guy here, who obviously really and truly is very good. I mean, there are people who are just coding savants who can just dash out code, and they can do it under pressure. They could have people watching them. They don't really, I mean, he really plays up how much pressure he's feeling here. And I don't know how much pressure he actually feels. He put the pressure on himself, and he I don't know if he's doing this. It's all live because he's got, obviously, I don't know, 3 different chat things going. What is one of those? I don't know what he's got going. He's got a bunch of different chat threads going. I don't know what they all are. I was trying to figure it out. I think one is like Restream, and one's Twitch. I don't know what he's got. He's got a bunch of different stuff. So anyway, he's putting all this pressure on himself, and he obviously thrives in it because he does pretty good at getting his stuff out. And he zips through, and of course he got it right on the first try. And he's got a good concept of all the minutia of coding. And I don't know what he's coded. I don't know what apps he's developed, what things he's done on his own, what things he's created. But like I said, my perspective of as coder is not about the minutia of coding, but the goal of the coding. I knew when I started developing an app at my last job what I needed to do. It was big. It was a year-long minimum project just for me to do it to a point where it was usable by the company. Now, luckily, I had a manager that was who believed in me enough after I showed him something I did in a few weeks to let me do it. It was a big project. It took some time. And I was surprised. I said it's going to take me like 8 months. He says, all right, do it. I said, okay. I just got the heads down and started cranking out stuff, and I just slowly made progress. And I did it all by way of researching and Googling and webs and book stuff that I could find, and just getting in there and hacking away at it. But I knew what the end goal was. And my goal was not to be a better programmer. My goal was to get the job done. And as I became more fluid, I would refactor stuff. I mean, you had to. I am a person who hates inefficiency, which probably helps a lot in improving my code. So I can look at some basic things and go, ew, there's too much in it. Even when I'm getting AI's help, right? AI's going, AI don't care about redundancy or efficiency. It might, in some cases, be more efficient. I know Claude AI is pretty decent at trying to refactor code. It also gets carried away. That's a whole nother conversation. But so there's some that are better than others, but a lot of times it'll just list out things in a very, they say, do this for all 27 fields. And I'm like, but it's the same. I see so much copying there. I'm like, there's got to be a way. And I'll figure out a lot of times a way to write something so it's not so redundant, because I don't like redundant code or where you see something 20 times. It's like, why doesn't the code think of the idea of using a variable for this monster long string that's on 27 different lines? If you're going to ever want to change the layout, it's going to be for all the lines because the code needs to be consistent. So why on earth would you want that line everywhere? If you need to change it, you got to go 27 times. So you go change that feature, that functionality somewhere else. You turn it into a variable, and you apply it. But that's the way I think in my coding. I look at it managerially speaking. It's like, where's the inefficiencies? Fix the inefficiencies. Get the task done. Optimize wherever possible. Those are what I see. I don't see the way somebody went about it, but my brain will look at it not in the what is syntactically going on here. I probably don't even see syntax. I just see same. You're doing one task a bunch of times. Why? I see the things that just look like it doesn't. Why am I repeating this, or why are we allowing this to happen? Because it just looks really inefficient. So I see inefficiencies and objectives. That's how I code. That's my coding approach. So everything else is minutia, which takes, like I said, it takes me to a managerial look of work. But I also know that I need to stay in the code. Even if I ever got a job as a manager, said, all right, I understand what needs to be done here. you still need to stay in the code so you understand that even if you've got great developers that are really good at the minutia, if you've got Prime Time, whoever, I don't know his real name, obviously, because his tag is the Prime Time. And this is the first time I've ever seen his stream, so I don't know anything about him, or I don't know anything. This is the only stream I've watched. I was just checking out because he mentioned leak code and how much I hate it. And he said he's doing hardcore leak code, and he put all this tasks on him. He's entertaining. He's got 677,000 followers, 270,000 views on this video alone. The guy is obviously knows his stuff. And there's a lot of these developers. Look at this. Let's see. Can pro gamers spot the fake speed? Oh, no. Let's see. A lot of these aren't coders. I'm looking at just... Now, the Primetime's the only one in this list. But there's a number of decent coders out there. And like I said, I don't know what his approach is, and I don't know that I want to be that kind of developer. I mean, I guess it'd be good, but I feel like when you start storing the minutia of everything you're doing in your brain, it's just a lot of stuff. I don't know. I mean, the brain is pretty good. It could store a lot of data. But I have just learned after 20 some years, it may even be more than 20 some years, maybe 30 some years of being in a coding industry where I've done some amount of coding. I'm trying not to date myself or age myself. I don't know why. It's what would I call it? Ego. It's like, no, I'm not old. I'm not old. No, I'm not old. And if you, come on, let's go run a half marathon and we'll see who wins. Me, I'm old. Let's go do, my sons, I've done up to 70 push-ups in one shot. I'm not Superman. I as much as I try to have Superman icons everywhere, because I'm a big fan of the whole concept of Superman is really what it is. But I tell them I can do 70 push-ups. They said, no, you can't. And it says, I do them. I could do it cold. I could do 50 to 60. Obviously, if I'm kind of warmed up and get going and I'm ready and hyped, I think I could still hit 70. I haven't tried to do that many in a while, so maybe I'm wrong. But I've done 50, 60 in no problem. I can sit down right now and do 50, 60 salsas. And just, my kids are like, no, you can't. And I prove it to them. And because they're not in that good a shape, they're not athletic. So I won't say athletic. One of my sons is pretty good. He bikes a lot. But even so, none of them do a lot of exercise to really know what their limits are. And they'll say, oh, I can do 30 something, whatever. And I'm like, no, you can't. I mean, because I have a better concept. I've been working out all the long time. I have an idea what it takes to be at certain points in fitness. But again, it's just me be digressing. You'll notice that about me too. I digress a lot. And here I am not even coding on the thing I'm supposed to be coding when I always say, I'm so worried about my loss of time. Time isn't this thing. So I was trying to, by the way, I was trying to put a background on my thing so you didn't have to look at my background, all my workout gear. I was trying to see if some of these, I like the way some of these guys have these cool backgrounds. I'm going, they're obviously using a green screen for that to be good. You can erase. I looked at a background removal tool that erases. I hate it. You're going to be stuck with my real life background. So that's real, at least for now, until I get a green screen. One of these days I might get a green screen. I've seen them. They only cost, depending on how good quality it is, they only cost $50, $60. Because you need them big. You can get one small and try to squeeze it in, put it right, put it on you. But I want something kind of big that sits behind me, because I'd use it for other things. It wouldn't just be me sitting here in front of you. Sometimes I'd probably be using it when I'm doing a board game, or maybe I'm doing a stand-up thing where I'm further away and I need more area. But anyway, so that's why it costs more. And again, that's money I don't have. But So that's my coding approach. So if you're ever curious how I approach things and why my skill is suspect, and you'll never see me doing coding tests or competing against other coders because I don't believe I beat them. You know, we'll see how my game development skills are, because a game takes, I've heard, and in my head, for me, a minimum of 12 to 18 months is what I said to get this into a state where it's a game of some value. Some. I won't release this game, I think, at that stage. Not fully released. At best, I'd call it a beta state when I get to that point. Maybe even an alpha state. But I've seen people who have developed decently quality games 4 to 7 years. 4 to 7 years before the successful games were released. Stardew Valley, I think the guy took over 4 years. He was the only one working on it. There was another game I saw online. You can find a YouTube guy who released a game. Forgot what his game was called. It was a little bit. It was higher res, better graphics. It took him like 7 years to release his game. Now I don't know how much time he was head down coding. The guy who did Stardew Valley was a lot of heads down coding. 10, 12 hours a day for a good majority of that 4 years. And yeah, like everybody, he had lost days. I saw his little video online about what he would, somebody who did how it happened kind of thing. Because it was successful. It was one of the most successful games ever, especially as an individual. It's pretty impressive. This is no Stardew Valley, I'm telling you right now. If it comes out as good as I hope it will, with the features and functionality, even if it was popular by football GM standards, it'll never hit that level of success, because by football GM standards is a very low bar. Okay. Well, I won't say it's a low bar. It may be a high bar. It may be really difficult to be at the top level of those things, but you got a very low target market. There's just not as many people playing. One of the most best well-known football game, video game, is Madden, right? I mean, by far, right now, currently existing, most popular game out there is Madden. And it's got about 10 million in sales. I probably the latest version. I don't know. Maybe they have different versions and each one gets its different numbers. But that's not a high number. I mean, Stardew Valley is what, 100 million? I mean, it's crazy. And football just doesn't have that window. Now, Madden may have the problem of, well, it releases a game every freaking year. How can you have, people aren't going to buy it every year. Some people do, but it's not enough that you're going to always have. Plus, Madden's not a great game. Has anybody created a great game yet in football? I don't know that anybody's ever released any football game that was considered fantastic, the best. It just was the ultimate. It hasn't existed yet. There's some GM games that try to, be really good at the back end stuff. There's some that try to do pretty good. There's games like Madden and others that do good at the front end. The UI, how cool it looks, the what they call it, the physics, and just all that, trying to be so much like the NFL that it's just considered, really good at certain points. And all of those parts are hard. But I'll tell you, the GM games, the reason there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 of them out there, it's really not that hard to do the back end. Not to knock you guys, it's really not that hard. The back end is just a bunch of numbers. You pull in a bunch of stuff, you try to relate them somehow, and they all have minutia effects on the UI or on the players. And you don't know to what extent. I mean, sometimes it'll say, you get 0.00769 bump on this. And then maybe if you upgrade it and do good, it'll go up to 0.007892%. And it's just adding these little tiny minutia numbers. And the reason I know that is because I've looked at some of people have gone through and actually made up sheets of how these affect your guys on in the game, how it affects their rating. And I still don't even know, like my game, nobody's, I mean, it's going to be the same, right? I take all that stuff and then you simulate. And the simulation, though, on almost all the GM games is pretty terrible. They don't focus. They don't care. That's not the main thing. And it's like, well, then what are we playing for? And I talked about this yesterday, so I won't go into too much more. But my idea, again, in my development of this game, and as it is, my approach to coding is the user perspective is the most important. And again, who's the user? In my case, it's me. But I don't look at it as the developer developing. I'm the guy who's looking at it going, what don't I like about these other games? Why do I not like those games? And why might they not be that popular? And I'm looking at them going, well, paywalls for all the free-to-play stuff. The game is okay. The ones with better game don't have any substance behind them. It's kind of like you can see the difference between a UI programmer, a guy who's good at the graphics, and a guy who's good at the numbers. I like numbers. I enjoy numbers. I am not great at graphics, but I understand the need. And my game is going to have something that tries to be visually appealing. And I have to understand my limitations. I can't afford an NFL license even if it was available. So that's out the door. But when I look at some of these games, I'm like, are the generic characters there appealing? I mean, if you're going with generic, obviously some of these guys have to do generic because they can't afford the license either. But random people, what is it that's appealing about that? Are there games on here that do a pretty good job? I mean, maybe. But it just looks like random drawings of random people. And you don't have any attachment to them. There's no desire to see those characters succeed. You don't really root for them in any way, right? So the GMing part becomes a big deal. So therefore you lose interest in the simulation. If the simulation, it's like, well, whatever, the GM stuff, I want to try to see if I can optimize, improve, try to get these guys better, but I'm not connecting to any of the characters. If they don't play well, or I find someone else who's doing better, I'm going to chop them and X them and get them out of my, So how do you make a game that allows you to have all that stuff while still making you want to see those players succeed? It's going to draw you into the game in a way that makes you, it's like a parent. It's like, or like a coach that's saw this kid and he raised him up and he saw him go to college and he saw him succeed and he starts showing up and he's constantly in touch with that kid and he wants to give him tips and guidance, and he's just grown to want to see him succeed. No matter where he ends up in the end, you want to see something happen. You want to watch him do what he does and root and cheer and just like be there for that player. And this is why I think certain things people like about, like some Madden has attempted to do, is create like career modes where you have a character that you're going to try to pull up. And my game's going to have that too. And I haven't fully implemented how I'm going to do that, but that's kind of like, I want to create the entire world. That's what I'm doing now. I'm creating the world. I'm creating the simulation that's going to make your player do well. I'm creating the stats and the back-end logic to know, well, what has to happen for him to do well. What are the minutia that builds a world around a character in football to make the football game what you want to see. And at every point, is it what you want? And so I want to have that in my game. And I'm really early on in this, and I can do anything I want, but it's all a matter of staying focused on the game itself and not trying to make what's best for the developer. That's me. But also what's best for the user is the truth. That's also me. But it's also anybody else. So I want to get this out to be publicly viewable at the earliest possible junction, where I get people to go, well, there's this and there's that. And yes, they may have a total different opinion of what I need to do, versus what I want to do. But but I can still find those people that are kind of on the same desire page as me and take into account their opinions. If some guy wants Madden, well, I'm not gonna throw too much effort into that, because I'm not trying to develop Madden. I don't want to. I'm not necessarily. I don't want to be a Madden killer. For one, I don't have the NFL license, and the only reason Madden's a success at all is because they have the NFL license. So I'm not competing against them. That's not the objective here. I'm not trying to create another game where you can control some dude and try to beat every player. A lot of people play that game, and then it's like, all right, so you're the quarterback. Okay, well, if you're the quarterback, then you should be the quarterback. You drop back, you look around, you throw the pass, and then you want to see what your guy does. No, these games are all about snap the ball, drop back, throw the ball, become the receiver, catch the ball, and then you're running with. So you're always the guy with the ball. The hands off to the running back. Are you the running back? No, you're the quarterback. You handed it off. Maybe you need to learn that transition to hand off to the guy. Whatever, you got to learn those details as the quarterback. But when you hand off to the guy, it should be, all right, well, who do I look to block? How do I help the guy? You shouldn't be every player on the field. You're not every player on the field. You're a guy. You want to be a defender? Fine. You want to be a CB, a linebacker? Fine. You learn to play that guy, and you should. The game needs to be built in those games even. I'm not even talking about my game anymore. Off the track I go. See ya. Those games, I tell you, this is how developers need to look at games though. They need to look at it to make you a part of the world. You can't be the entire world. You can't be everything. People enjoy role-playing games because they become part of the world. They are a character in a world that runs with or without them. But you're trying to affect the world by going out and saving everybody, right? You're going to go do something. That's why RPG games are so successful, even in a digital. You're in a world. You're one guy, generally, or a team. You might be a small team, 4 or 5 guys. But you're in a world trying to compete. And even those games that you're a team, you typically might you get attached to the team or some of those characters because they all have their own personalities. And really what you're doing is just kind of manipulating them. But there's no swapping them out. Their world is designed and balanced so that each one of them can play in the world. But they still do the action. Right? So in those games where you're a team, you don't do the actions. You tell them what to do, and they do the action, and so the world can interact with them at a level that's equal to the game. It's kind of like if you're simulating a football game and you're telling the players what to do. You're saying you want certain guys to do X or Y or some aspect that gives them a reason to do what you ask. And that's generally your play creation or what the plays you're running is. So run this play. And they all try to scatter and run the play. Now, you want to give them the skills or abilities to do better. Maybe the problem is with football, everything is minutia, right? It's like in an RPG game with teams, there's no minutia. It's like you throw fireball here, fireball blow up. You shoot this guy from here to there. You might target it, but you're still gonna there's no minutia. In minutia meaning the micro, the little tiddly bits. Okay, so in football, it's all about the minutia. What would you teach an individual to do, or what would you ask an individual to do to be better? It's not just run out there and catch the ball. It's, get your form down, keep your body low, look back halfway over to make sure that you check for the ball, focus on your route, hard stop, turn sharp, make sure that you lose your players. These are all key elements you would have to work on, right? You would have to teach them that. Football games, that kind of minutia in a video game is really hard because, the programming ain't there yet. I mean, not the programming, the application technology is not even there yet. You have a lot of Unity Madden does a pretty good job at doing pretty good, and there's some others. But if you really watch almost any true close to reality implementation of your code, of an application code, it just doesn't look right. It's not gonna. I mean, they still kind of look a little clunky. Hold on, I'll be right back. Gotta love my sweater, shorts, and t-shirt dress. I haven't stopped for my workout yet. Hey, it's here! My computer finally came back from Microsoft. It was due this afternoon. I probably should start loading that puppy up soon, just because it's going to take a month to get everything back to what I need it to be, just to even see if it's fixed. I should have put like a little black permanent marker. I should have marked on the back of my computer to see if they did anything at all. I'd be willing to bet they did nothing. If I start plugging in my stuff and my video card crashes in the first 5 minutes, I am going to be so perturbed. Because the problem was that my okay, so I fully digressed at this point. Let's wrap it up here. Anyway, so there you go. There's my approach to coding. I look at it from a end user approach. I do figure stuff out. You can see I've been trying to do that now. 34 days in, I've got a lot of stuff going. And I'm going to get a lot more done. Today's going to be a good day. I've got, it's 11:15, 11:20. I've got about almost 5.5 hours. Probably end up going to be 3.5 to 4 because I do have to take a break. I really want to get my formations loading in some way. So that's my goal for today. I did actually, my plan for this sprint, I actually implemented sprints. I was researching this. I'm trying to figure out my my visual layout for my game, and I've always liked this, and I didn't know what the style was called, so I asked Copilot. Copilot was able to tell me. I like this style, this dark shadowy style, and I guess it's called nowhere. I don't know. All right, so here's the items I have put on my sprint. I have 5 items. I got to get auth working, and I got to get my PBI deployed. Or not my PBI, my production deploy working. So public access with authentication, with all my stuff going to a prod container in Docker. That's my goal for this sprint. Might not include today. So whatever I get done today is probably all I'm going to get done for a little while on this piece, because I got to focus on my sprint items and see if I can get them done. I have 2 weeks to try to get this stuff implemented. If things go smoothly and I'm able, hopefully I can move on to getting back to actual more code for the game itself. These things are all kind of not game itself related, but they all need to get done. These are all technical bits. What I call them, tech debt for this application to fully get going. So in order for me to start making things available to allow people access to the game while it's in development for testing and review and just general tweaking around, I need to get those things in place. So that's part of my PBI for this sprint, or part of my goals for this sprint. So anyway, that's my goals. I will get back to that in the future as well. Until next time, take it easy. Bye. Here's what we did. Oh, any other thing? Power start of keyboard touchpad CPU video out. They did not do anything with the USB-C ports. Nothing. USB. But they didn't say what they fixed. Ugh. What's this? So, let me get this straight. They ran a bunch of tests, but didn't fix nothing to fix. It says right there, all we did is test it. It didn't say fix it. Why did you say this is why your computer, this is why your computer, and then not actually say fixed. No. What is that? Oh, that's a fan, which doesn't have a thing. Step That's the whole point. If you plug it in and it blows up 2 seconds after you start it. You guys suck. It took 2 seconds for the Thunderbolt port. I just bumped the cord and immediately disconnected it. This is the third freaking time. Guaranteed repair. And all they did, we tested everything. Obviously, you didn't test anything. Tested a bunch of stuff. Whatever you test, you run a bunch of stupid diagnostics. They don't test for things like bad connections and things not functioning. You plug it in. If they did, they would have noticed. It's stupid. I'm mad. I'm making myself